G'day everybody, and for those who have come in late, you're listening to Expand the Phantom
500
podcast.
years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck, and upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die." The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.
Welcome to episode 176, where we chat to Timothy Boyle, who was the writer and producer for the 2010 Phantom movie that almost was created. For those who want a new Phantom movie, this is a must podcast to watch and or to listen to. My name is Jermaine, and tonight I am joined by Dan and Stephen. How are you guys going?
Yeah, good, Jerm. Good, Steve. Good to be with you guys. Really looking forward to tonight.
Yeah.
Yep, g'day fellas. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm ready and raring to go.
All right. Well, we're not going to have a chit chat tonight. This is actually what's on the run sheet. No chit chat. So
Yeah.
let's jump in and let's get gone.
Well, before we do, I know we said we're not going to chit chat, but have you read the latest Phantom, like the latest issue?
No.
Yes, I have. What about it, Steve?
Well, did you read the Phantom forum at the back?
Tell us about it, Steve.
Well, just happens to be in the latest issue of the Phantom, available at all good newsstands and local comic shops right now. There's a letter there from a Rennie who has asked Dudley what he thinks the possibility of another Phantom film being made is. And Dudley does his best at ignoring the question altogether because there was a whole bunch of other points that Rennie asked about.
Yeah, what a coincidence, eh? It just goes to show that a lot of Phantom fans still want a Phantom movie. And Dan, I believe you did a bit of Googling.
Well, I think you might have Googled, and then I just followed the links. So.
Yeah, that was me, actually, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, so there is a few news sites and that sort of thing from about 2008 that talk about a Phantom movie and the possibility of a Phantom movie. We'll uncover it over the course of this as to where it was at and what happened. But so it was in the works and it came out publicly, but never actually happened.
So now this has all come about because in episode 173 we had a podcast with Tom Sillinger, who told us that he worked with Timothy around 2010 on a new Phantom movie. Now, in the podcast, we all got excited, and I know other fans did as well, because we've had comments about, new Phantom movie, Timothy Boyle, you got to get him on. So a huge thanks to Tom for hooking us up and introducing us to Tim, and we have managed to do that. So let us introduce our guest for today. He is the writer, producer, and the director. He is a writer, producer, and a director, Timothy Boyle, and he was key for the proposed movie, The Phantom Legacy. How are you, Timothy?
Mate, I'm very well. How are you? Good to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. It's a huge honour for myself, and I know for the other guys as well. It's been a very exciting couple of weeks trying to keep it bottled up and not splurt it all out and stuff like that. So now, obviously, some of the links with some past interviews with the movie back a decade ago and your IMDb page will be linked in our show notes. But for those who are, I guess, too lazy to click on a link, Timothy, do you want to start off and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're based, kind of your age or your age range, a bit about your career, and go from there.
Sure. So I've been a filmmaker since I started about 1994. I started on television doing some shows on Channel 9 and got into production that way. Found myself making my first feature in about 98. And since then I've made 4 or 5 other movies, some low-budget independent films over the time. And I've just released a movie about a month ago called On Halloween, which has just been released in the States and over in Europe. And it's doing pretty well. It's making some money. And I think now that Halloween's come and gone, it'll probably be another year before we'll sort of do any more sort of movement on that film for a while. But that was a fun movie to make, and I made that as a little side project because I was in the middle of finishing off another film, and we sort of ran out of money with all the visual effects. So I decided to make another movie, which we can then sell, so we can chip away and make some more visual effects, so we can finish the other one. So I made a movie to finish another movie, if that makes sense. So I've been doing it for a while. I've been a writer-director for a while, and I got involved with The Phantom back in 2008. I ran into a executive producer of the original Phantom film with Billy Zane, and ran into him at a cafe. And he basically said, "Hey, listen, I've got a script for a new movie. I hear that you're a filmmaker. Are you interested in having a read?" And I was like, "Hell yeah! Well, it's the Phantom. I want to read what the new Phantom movie is going to be like." I was just excited as you guys are. And so I read it, and it was just terrible. It was just everything. I could barely even read it. It was incoherent. It was just a mess. And I said that to them, and he said, "Well, if you think you can do better," and I'm like, "I know I can do better." And so they basically said, "Well, we'll put together a treatment, and we'll pitch it to the studios." And so I did, and they liked it. And basically, I flew over to New York, and I sat down with the comic studio, and I pitched the idea of the movie. So
Wow.
it was on for young. That in itself is a funny story. I'll tell you about that a bit later on. But
So when you were talking to the executive producer, and it's Bruce Sherlock, who was his only credit on IMDb is actually the Phantom film from '96. What did you think of the '96 film for a start?
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan. I thought it was it wasn't what I wanted to see in a Phantom film. There's things I liked about it, but for me, on a personal level, I just felt like just the storytelling in itself just wasn't where I saw comic books and where I saw this character. Like I saw understanding. I think what made it really interesting for me as a writer to take on writing the Phantom legacy was that it was coming from a place where I wasn't a hardcore fan. So I knew the Phantom, obviously, as everybody in Australia does. And I'd read the comics growing up, but not to a stage where I was like, oh man, this is my comic book. This is what I'm right into. And I think what that did was actually give me a position where I wasn't too attached to anything in particular. And when I went back and actually looked at the comic book, I did a lot of research on it. And I found it's really interesting sort of seeing the similarities. You can actually see where even the stuff with Star Wars, where it sort of ties in, where you have Old Man Maz and Obi-Wan Kenobi, you have the twins, male and female. I mean, there's a lot going on there that I'm sitting here going, this is like, this is good stuff. This is really, really good stuff. And when I was commissioned, it was funny because when I was commissioned with the to go and pitch the film in New York, we went to this restaurant called the Palms. And the Palms is a very famous steakhouse, and they sell $100 steaks, and I've never had $100 steak before in my life, and so I'm.
What did it taste like?
Well, here's the thing, right? I thought because my pitch was just going to be so short, because I thought they were just going to laugh me out of the room. Because what the thing was, they said to me they wanted to modernise the Phantom and make the Phantom relevant in today's day. And I thought, well, how do I do that? And I thought the best way I could do that is focus on the twins, because no one had really done that. And I thought, well, that's a good way to modernise it. How do we pass the mantle on to the twins? Well, the only real way you can do that is if you kill the Phantom. So I thought,
hundreds of Phantom fans have just knocked over with shock.
That was it. And I thought it was going to be the shortest pitch in the world. So I thought what I'll do is I'll just have this first 15 minutes of the movie where the Phantom is just classic Phantom in classic uniform with his guns and, devil by his side, and is just awesome. It's just doing everything that you've always wanted to see the Phantom do.
And I'd say absolutely, you've nailed that. Reading the first part of the script, he's in the shadows. You don't see him as flashes and all that sort of stuff. You have encapsulated that brilliant.
Well, yeah, you guys actually, I sent you guys a script to have a read, so you can at least know what I'm talking about. So you guys have read the film. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That's it's incredible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, look, a lot of love went into it, and I really, it's such a great story. You know what I mean? Like it was easy for me to do, but it certainly took a lot of time and energy. But I was just going to say the whole thing was that you know, and I thought this is going to be the shortest pitch in the world because, you know, they were talking about, well, the Phantom, maybe we can modernize him by the reason why he's got the purple suit and stuff is because it actually goes invisible in the jungle, or he has lots of gadgets and stuff. And I'm like, dude, he's not the Predator, and he's not Batman. Like he's the Phantom. So the only thing I sort of took literal in a different sort of twist was that I kind of did make him as powerful as, you know, 10 tigers and strong. You know, I did make him physically strong, and I made his eyes go white because, you know, the whole classical look of the Phantom is you always see him when he's the Phantom, he has those white eyes. And I thought, well, how do you create a uniform that doesn't look ridiculous when you just have, like, you know, how Billy Zane had his with the eyes. It kind of, you know, it needed to be like, if Billy Zane's eyes were white, I would have been like, man, this is rock and roll. Yeah. And I thought, well, hang on a tick, why can't I do that? You know, it's not saying he can now fly. It's just saying that their eyes can go a shade of pale of white. And then once I figured that was the thing, and that's probably the only sort of twist that I added outside of, you know, canon, I guess, is that I actually gave him a reason to have white eyes, and that way he would look like the Phantom on screen. So, I mean, anyway, that was just my thoughts behind it.
It's actually a way of making the canon possible, because the canon is the white eyes, as exactly you've said. So it's a way to be able to explain that. And I think that all fans would have forgiven anything that possibly stepped outside of it to give us the white eyes, because, as you've said, that's iconic. You mentioned Billy Zane there. Can I just throw a quote at you from an MTV article I read from 2008?
Yes, here we go.
This is you addressing the idea of your film being a sequel. And you said, now there's one thing I need to set straight, as the reporting is incorrect. This film is not a sequel, Boyle said on his MySpace blog, which kind of dates it as well.
Old school.
It's a relaunch, it's a reboot of the comic franchise to the big screen. This film has nothing to do with the 1996 movie. So you were keen to relaunch and start again, and not be seen as that continuation of the Billy Zane film.
Yeah, because Billy Zane came out and said he was very keen to be part of it. And I think I said something like, oh, there's nothing zany about my film, boom, boom. And then I ran into him in a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and the guy, apart from him being lovely, he's a super lovely guy. Yeah. His biceps are bigger than my head. like here am I thinking that, oh, look at me being really witty, you know, and saying stuff, and I'm sitting there going, this guy could squash me in a heartbeat. This guy is just he is massive. He's just a big, strong dude. And so yeah, I kind of behind it, when I'm typing, I'm fine, but, you know, in real life, don't mess with Billy Zane. That's all I'm saying.
He's a lovely guy, and it's almost 12 months to the day that he actually appeared on the podcast as well.
There you go. He's awesome. I've got a lot of time for him, and I think if now that a bit of time's passed, I think it'd be nice if this was to ever happen. It'd be nice to get him in there.
Oh, and for him to be that 21st Phantom for the first 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, I'd have no issues with that. So
there'll be a nice little nod.
Yeah, well, I tried to do lots of little nods in there for the fans, because I think the way I sort of pitched it to the studio was that I said, look, you need to have a story that doesn't have a scroll at the beginning, like no writing at the beginning, right? Don't do that. You want to have a story, and I pitched it kind of like the Matrix. Like the audience need to follow Neo, and as Neo finds out what the Matrix is, the audience also finds out what the Matrix is. And so for me, is how do I create a world where Kit doesn't know who the Phantom is? So as he discovers his heritage and his position, and understands who his father and his forefathers were, then so does the audience. And I think that was the important thing for me. So you're not telling the story without exposition. You're just going on a journey with this character. And I don't want to give too much away, because you never know, the movie may get done eventually and what have you. But you know, but in the end of the day, you kind of want to give a position where you can sort of let these characters sort of find their own feet. you know, there's nothing better than, as you would see with the Avenger movies and things like that, there's nothing better than having flawed characters, because you know, having that redemption is like super important in those character arcs. And but you know, doing the research in the film, you know, like I said, I took it very seriously, because I really wanted to make sure I delivered something that was going to be, you know, that's going to be at a standard that the fans are going to really want. I took that situation as something that was like, you know, I need to, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders for that. I needed to make sure I delivered something. So I am really impressed. Like, I'm really sad that the movie hasn't been made. It's probably one of those sort of weird scenarios. We got so close to making it. We were in pre-production. We were in Hollywood. We were casting. We had meetings with some pretty big A-list Hollywood actors.
Are you able to share those names with us?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a long time ago. We met with Liam Hemsworth. Back in the day. He was, you know, because we were looking at a young guy. We'd met with, actually, isn't this terrible? I forgot her name. She was in the Vampire Diaries. we met with a couple of actors, but we were looking at Diane Lane before she went over and did Superman. You know, to play Diana Walker. So we're having a chat with a couple of really sort of decent people, and we had money coming. We had $86 million lined up, and at that time in 2008, that was enough to make this movie. And then the money stopped, and I'm sitting in LA, and I was actually house sitting at the time. Another very famous Australian couple, they had turtles, and they needed their turtles fed. So I was house sitting over there in just off, you know, Mulholland Drive sort of thing, and they called me up and said they're coming back to LA. So basically, get out of their house, and my paycheck stopped coming in. So the money was not coming in. I was sitting there going, I don't know what's happening to the world. I've just basically lost the place I was living in, and the movie just kind of went on freeze. And we found out that the money was in an escrow fund that was coming in from a producer that was funded completely by Colonel Gaddafi's son. And the Yanks went in and took out Gaddafi and froze all of his assets, which included his son's assets, which then trickled its way down to me. So I had no idea. I had a producer that was putting the money in, and it basically, the film fund just froze.
Wow. So we have the Yanks to blame for it.
Well, no, look, I'm kind of, I don't know. I think I might have, you know, metaphorically dodged a bullet, or possibly literally dodged a bullet. I don't know. Like,
the link that possibly a good thing was made because of General Gaddafi. It'd be.
I make films for Gaddafi. Well, that's the thing. You never know, really. You know, you got to be careful who you get your money from. So that was it. And so the movie went from being greenlit and going to frozen, standby, and I've been standing by now for 12 years.
So I did want to address the Jumba in the room, or the elephant in the room, and just ask that question: why didn't the movie get made? It comes down to Colonel Gaddafi.
Gaddafi.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't even write that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy.
Surely there's a movie in that.
I've just got the news footage of him being captured now.
Yeah. It was at that point. It was at that point when my money froze.
So they just needed to hold off for another year or so, and then we could have been right.
Nice. Well, I knew I should have had problems because I was teamed up. It was funny because they didn't want me to direct. Like, I was really pushing to direct. They really liked my script, and I was trying to explain to them that I'm a writer-director, and if they like my script and they like my vision. So they actually teamed me up with Brett Leonard. I don't know if you remember Brett, but he did Virtuosity and The Lawnmower Man and things like that. And so Brett was pretty big in the 90s, and so I sort of got to know Brett pretty well. And his attitude was like, well, you're going to be directing, but I'll just share the director's credit. And I'm like, man, come on. Like, if you're not going to be doing anything and it's just me, then, and I don't really co-direct, and it's not how I do things. And so when I came back to Australia, that's when I went, well, their main issue was that I'd never done a comic book film before. So I wrote my own comic book film. and we shot that, and that's the movie that's taken me nearly 10 years to finish, because a visual effects supervisor was like, yeah, man, you can do all this stuff. You can do this, you can do that, it's fine. And so I just took his word for it. But what I didn't realize is that, he can do all that stuff. It's just going to take him a decade to do it. So it's been a long journey. And so that's been a painful sort of scenario for me, because we got another good sort of superhero movie that's just sitting there. And that's now called Shadow Wars. Originally it was called The Half Dead. And we had John Rhys Davies read the script and loved it, and he just came out and just did the film. It was amazing. And so working with John, who's worked in Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones, and he's worked with amazing people. And I remember actually the last day of shooting with John, he said to me, he has that voice, that Gimli voice, that lad. He said, lad, you remind me of another filmmaker. And I'm like, please say Steven Spielberg, please say Steven. And he goes, Peter Jackson. And I went, okay, yeah, I could do that. So it wasn't Spielberg, but that was kind of fun. But it was great, and working with John Rhys Davies was an awesome, such a Hollywood icon. So to work on a movie with him was just fantastic. And he actually said a funny thing on the day one of shooting. He said on the second setup, so it wasn't the first setup, but the second setup, he said to me, he said, lad, I think you should put the camera here. You should have the money, the actress, which is Tasma Walton, stand here. I will stand here, and we'll do our scene this way. And I looked at it and I said, no, actually, I think I prefer it my way, which is just shoot it here and here. And he goes, good. He goes, I have no effing clue what I'm talking about. I just wanted to see what type of director you were. And after that, he goes, no, he knows what he wants. And whereas if I'd listened to him, he would have been busting my balls the whole time.
Lost respect for you.
Yeah.
Sorry?
He would have lost respect for you.
Absolutely. But here's the irony to that. If what he said was better than what I thought, I would have gone with it. I would have gone, hey, that's a great idea. So I'm lucky what he said wasn't better, because he would have got respect and I would have got the one good shot of the film. So,
yeah. So in preparation for this podcast, as you said before, I've printed mine out. For those on YouTube, you're going to be able to see it. But we've all
Mine's
been
still on PDF.
I printed it out at work. I don't get paid enough, so I might as well get something out of it. We got version 5 of the script, and this is going to be on our Patreon, which is a huge thank you for allowing us to do that.
I can show it here if you want. I can be really tricky and do this for you. Whoops, let's take the front. There we go. I can do this right here. There it is there.
Yeah. So again, if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this.
So that's it. That's the 100, and there you go. Read fast.
So you do want text scrolling up the screen? Well,
and we do have to say a huge thank you, Tim, for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it, and then your generosity in letting us put it in the P3 and make it accessible for our Patreons is just fantastic. And I know that that's going to be something that they all get a real kick out of, being able to read this story, because we've certainly enjoyed it, and we're all gagging to get this film made now.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Now, I was just wondering, guys, could we maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about what we liked, without giving the spoiler away, but what we liked about the script? And then I'm sure we've got a million and other questions we would like to ask you, Timothy. So, Stephen, what do you like about the script, buddy?
Well, there's stacks, but with Tim saying before about want to make it a modern film, but also staying true to the traditions, and developing characters, as he was talking about before. All the characters that we know and love are there. We've got the Phantom, we've got Dana, we've got Devil, we've got the twins, we've got Luaga, we've got General Bababu. As soon as I saw his name on the script, he's going to do a shifty. As soon as, because he's all acting all nice. I thought, here we go. Our fans are going to know that something shifty is about to happen. Who else we got? Then when we say legacy, we've also got Luaga's got sons. We've got Lothar. We've got
Colonel
Werribee. Old Man Moz.
Jungle Patrol. Old Man Moz. Guran.
And just thinking, yes, this fella knows the Phantom. He's either a fan or he's done a really good lot of homework, because every character is treated with the respect that they should be, and you can see the characters from the comic doing what they're doing in the movie. No, I've never seen this movie in the comic book. It's very much a new take, a new story. So yeah, those are all things that I particularly, and I don't want to give away. My favourite part of the movie was at the end, and I don't want to spoil it just in case it is made. But the Phantom's final confrontation with General Bababu up there, and he's got to rescue Luagas, and he just strips away all that extra stuff, and it's pure Phantom. And I was thinking, yes, this is how you end a Phantom movie. This is what you do.
Dan, I'll let you go first.
I was just so engaged from the first 2 pages, as Stephen said, with General Bababu there, and initially, it's not spoiling to say the first 5 minutes of a movie, initially is presented as the good guy or helping President Liger. A fan will know that, hang on, that's not going to be quite right. Or that's really the first test for the fan, is to go, hang on, where is this going to go? Is General Bababu going to be treated like a good guy? And because there is another bad guy presented. But then the moment that happens and he becomes a bad guy, you're like, okay, as a fan who knows the character, I earned a little bit of insight that regular people wouldn't have. You can still see how non-fans would enjoy the film. And then that just kept happening. There were just so many things that, as a fan through the film, you would know, anywhere between 5 minutes and split seconds between the regular viewer, what was going on. So there was that little bit of a payoff for being a fan. And then it was just such a, the scenes at the start with the Phantom in full Phantom mode, working in the shadows, you see him there, he's gone, it's, it was really capturing from the first moments. And then, those payouts for the fans as you read through, that was what really sold it for me.
Yeah. Well, Timothy, I will have to say, you actually got me into trouble, because I was supposed to be putting my children to bed, but I had my phone in the light out there and I was reading it, and my wife ended up saying, look, you're not helping putting the kids to bed. Why don't you just go out and finish that? And I think it was about 10 or 11 o'clock by the time I actually did that. And then I was trying to message the other guys, but they had already fallen asleep. So it was no, and everything that they said is totally accurate. It was a great story. It respected the Phantom. You made mention of the white with the eyes. That was probably the only key difference between.
I call it a Hollywood tweak, is what I call it.
Yeah.
You can live with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like there's magical skulls or anything like that. It is a minor tweak, which, in a sense, does add to the character, does add to the appearance, the mysteriousness of the character. And I liked how, for the fans, they would have just seen all the Easter eggs and just would have loved them. But for the new fans or the casual fans, it would have been key moments that they would have been able to learn. I guess it would have been very similar as if you're a DC or a Marvel. Probably Marvel's probably the better one, where there's all Easter eggs in there. So for the Marvel fans, they love it, and they get all giddy and silly and fanboyish over the little Easter eggs, which is what we would have done in this movie. But for a casual reader, which I am to a Marvel movie, it's still, you can still follow and you can still enjoy it as well. So I thought you tailored very well for the new fan as well as the fanboys, which the three of us all.
I really thought it was important to make sure that the fans got the movie that they wanted.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to make sure it's accessible to anyone who's people who've never even heard of the character. So, and that's why I thought it's really important to not have the exposition, but just to show that movement. And there's a moment. I mean, my favourite part of the film, and I was, without giving anything away, but for me, my favourite part is when there's a moment at the film where you start questioning whether Heloise wasn't meant to be the Phantom. and whether she was meant to be it and Kit wasn't, you know. And there's a moment in there where, you know, she's always been told that, well, she can't be because her eyes don't go white. And there's just a moment in there that really, for me as a filmmaker, just really works. And that opens up to this, because when I pitched the idea, I pitched it as a continuing story. So I had 2 Phantom films which we had tied down. Which was, the first one was Phantom Legacy, which is funny because originally I was with my mates. We were working out of a little office in Hollywood, and upstairs the guys were doing Tron 2.0, and when they found out my movie kind of got put on hold, they changed their name from Tron 2.0 to Tron Legacy. So that was fun. I was like, come on.
Wait till the corpse is cold.
Well, exactly, right? Well, the other funny thing was that we had a production designer who was attached to our film, which we had some really interesting ideas, especially with the flowers and the sort of the ink and the stuff that goes on the body, and, you know, the yesteryear stuff in the film. And he's named Owen Patterson, and Owen ended up being the production designer for Black Panther. And there is a lot of my little, hey man, this is what I want to do in Black Panther, especially in the cave stuff. I'm like, yeah, I've seen that too. So, there's a bit of I mean, it's just an incestuous sort of thing where everybody kind of sort of takes ideas from where they hear things or what have you. And so, you know, it's just life in a big city, really. But you know, we were pretty far down the track to making this film, and it's just, you know, it's heartbreaking that it didn't go there. But you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, if we get enough people rallying behind it, people sort of, you know, you never know. I mean, it's at the moment, you know, like I said, we had a second movie, which was originally titled Phantom Retribution. And then in theory would have moved into the Mandrake film, which I've got this killer script for Mandrake, which, you know, would be amazing to make as well. And then my hope was then to go into Flash Gordon and then go into Defenders of the Earth. And that was my plan. And at the time, the CEO said, so this is 2008, and I sort of laid out my path for the next 6 years of, you know, this universe. I said, we just basically shoot Phantom 1 and 2 back to back. We see how they go. If they work, then we go straight into Mandrake and Flash. And because the rights weren't owned by me, I only had the rights to Phantom, and I looked like I could get the rights to Mandrake. So at the time, it was like, well, I could do this 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't work without Flash Gordon. Like I needed that in order to do the Defenders of the Earth. And there was just no way I was going to get the Flash Gordon rights. They would just tie up with other people. So it kind of went dead in the water there. And Rocky Shabbat just said, there's no way people want to see that many people, like that many superheroes in a film. And I said to him, man, dude, seriously, they've just done they've just done Iron Man, and they were shooting Captain America at the time. And I said, they're going to do the Avengers. We can just we don't have as many characters to go through. We can just go 1, 2, 3, get these out, and we can do the Avengers. And, you know, the equivalent of the Avengers to Defenders of the Earth. And anyway, shoulda, coulda, woulda, didn't happen.
And you planted the seeds even in this one with Lothar appearing, and so there was that way for it to unfold.
Well, because I planned for it the whole way. You know, when I found out that Lothar was part of the Banda tribe, and I thought, well, then he needs to be part of this film because then I can have him actually entering the Mandrake at the end of Retribution, entering the Mandrake theatre, where he ends up, you know, being with Mandrake, and that way you have this continuance, this story that continues, and it's about building the universe. And you know, Lothar's in this film is a great character, and it's, you know, it's really funny because I reread the film when I found I was doing this. I thought, man, I better have a look at the script again. It's been a decade since I've read it. And it was funny seeing just how relevant it is in today's day.
Yeah.
Like,
it actually still be made.
Well, you've got everything from people claiming false election results through to TV brainwash. I mean, it's all there.
It's very topical, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could have done that yesterday. It seems that
yeah, like sometimes you get stuff and it's like it dates very easily, but this has not dated at all.
No. Well,
it could quite easily still be made, you know, and then, or it could even be adapted into like a into a TV series from on Netflix and stuff like that as well. They could still be made, and it would work. We're on this podcast. We've said, I've lost count how many times we've said it, but and in reading the story, I'm like, yeah, we've said that would work. We've said that would work. We've said that would work, and it's like, you know, he had this all mapped out a decade ago.
Yeah,
it's just, yeah.
We've even talked about the prospect of you know, the 21st Phantom dying, and then the idea of Kit and Heloise working out who's the next Phantom. That has become a storyline in the Scandinavian Phantom comics now in the last 3-4 years.
That's awesome.
So, you know, there'd be an appetite. Or whether there's an appetite for it, there might be, but there'd certainly be an acceptance of it and a preparedness of Phantom fans to move into that.
Well, back in
you made Heloise a very strong character in here.
Yeah.
One of her, with her big reveal, whatever it is, about halfway through the movie, and I should have expected it, and I didn't. When you know, takes the mask off. Oh, of course it is.
Well, what I wanted to do, I mean, we're talking about it, so I guess, you know, the fans are just going to have to bear with the spoilers. So we should just put lots of spoiler alerts for you know, possibility. But what I wanted to do with that was have Kit feel like it's his duty to be the Phantom, and I wanted Heloise to. It's just her nature to be the Phantom, and that's what I wanted. It's like she was. Whether she's called the Phantom or not, she's doing everything the Phantom would be doing without knowing any of the history. She's just, it's what she does. It's who she is.
Yeah.
Whereas Kit's like, oh, this is my forefathers. I'm going to take the mantle. I'm going to be the guy. And what that does is it adds to a really interesting story arc moving forward, because you have one person who now goes, well, I'm strong, and I know why I'm strong, and I know who my lineage is, and I know who my family is. And now I'm going to hunt down every single person that messed with us. And we're going to take on the Brotherhood. We're going to take them on. We're going to take down these people, which is not what the Phantom's about. So for him to have that retribution and to be like, you know, just this killing machine ready to go, you know, the only person who can stop the Phantom is the Phantom. And so you have a brother and sister Phantom versus Phantom storyline. And that was what I was really looking forward to getting into, you know, that sort of story, because you got all these rich characters, but, you know, neither of them want to fight each other. And and both of them are kind of right. They both have the right idea behind things. So it just adds to that duplicity of really good story arcs. And it was just an exciting prospect. And then, like I said, I had this great story for Mandrake. So it was like, it just felt like everything was just building and building and building to Defenders of the Earth. And
I do like to think that certainly if the first 2-3 movies made money, King Features would find a way quickly for Flash Gordon to come on the back of it, and then, you know, be part 4, 5, 6, whatever it might be.
Here's the thing. I don't need to do Flash Gordon, right? But what I'd like to do is, if we're doing this idea, is have whoever's doing it on the same page as what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not about me making all these movies. It's about just having somebody overseeing the arc to make sure it all clicks into place. I don't have to make every film. You know, I don't even have to make the first film. You know, but the idea behind me pushing for the Phantom, the idea behind me trying to get this film up and getting so close to it, was to try and tell this story. And the story was not just this one story. You know, the Phantom was a 6-hour story, and there was a Mandrake story which fed into the Phantom. Then there's a Flash Gordon story which was kind of by itself. But what that does is sets up Ming and his storyline, and then that brings it. And when the Defenders happens, it's when Flash is back on Earth and Ming's chased him back to Earth, kind of thing. And now he's fighting them. But, of course, all these other characters that you know are now joining in. And guess what? There you are. So look, it would be amazing if anything like that could happen. And, you know, but it's a funny industry, and it's a funny world that we live in, and you just kind of roll with the punches, and who knows? I mean, I'll never say never. Like, I'm still very passionate about the film. But, you know, in the meantime, I've gone off and made other movies, and, you know, I'm working on other stuff. I'm looking at shooting another film next year, which is a drama. it's a romantic drama, basically. It's as far away from the fandom as you can get, but we're sort of eyeing off some people for that. So I mean, life goes on, but there's always this little guy here in the corner there. There's always that sort of shadow thing sort of working behind me, going, wouldn't it be great if we could figure that out? So.
Well, if you ever get an extra in the background just reading a Phantom comic as the main characters are doing what they're doing, just to, put it out there, keep it in people's minds.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking I wish I had $80 million in my back pocket to bankroll the film. We might have to add a few more Patreon levels, boys, if we're going to try and...
Well, I don't know if we did. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even know what the budget would be sitting now, if it'd be more or less. I mean, there's an amazing thing. I don't know if you guys have seen the Unreal Engine, but what they're doing in The Mandalorian and stuff like that is just the technology. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're hearing all the racket around me as well. I do apologise for that. It sounds like somebody's drilling a hole out the...
I can't hear that.
Okay, cool. So with Mandalorian and things like that, I don't know if you know the technical aspects to it, but all of that shot, like every single scene is shot on a soundstage. And like all those big open desert scenes, soundstage.
Really?
In a bar, soundstage. It's all, and that soundstage is run by an Unreal Engine program, which is basically a massive LED wall. And they move the camera and it moves the background in 3D in real time.
Oh, wow.
So all the explosions. So if you look at the Mandalorian's reflections of, his helmet and stuff like that, they don't add that in after because it's actual light reflecting off his suit from the screens, which are happening in real time.
Oh, wow.
So the reason why that looks so good is because of this technology. So there's ways to do things now on a technical level that you just didn't have 10 years ago. And so you never know. You might be able to do. I think there's another show called Queen's Gambit, which is playing on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, my wife's just finished that.
Yeah, I mean, all of that shot with the same thing. So, and it looks very real.
Yeah, no, it does. I couldn't get into it. But yeah, no, it does. And I guess for period pieces as well, that would work quite well.
Yeah.
And I guess if this was, let's just say it was to go to something like Netflix or something like that, you could have your flashbacks and that could solve that problem because you've got 400 or 500 years of rich history, stuff like that as well. So, yeah, I'm sold, but unfortunately, I don't have that money either. So,
well, a way of making money would be merchandise. So did you have any merchandise ideas with the film? Was that up to you, or that would have been a studio thing?
That wasn't my thing. At the time, I was actually fighting to try and stay on or be the director. It was a very strange scenario for me because everybody loved the script, but nobody wanted to give me the chance to direct because everybody wanted to direct that script.
Yeah, right.
That's what it was. And so I was just too busy just on a daily basis, just fighting with the studio to prove that I could do what I needed to do. And like I said, the movie never happened, so I didn't have to go any further than that. But I'm sure if it was to come about today, it just wouldn't even be a question. I'd get the directing job straight up. So
yeah. So when we were talking with Tom, he was telling us about that you got him to work on the logo and some other stuff like that. Are you able to? Do you have that on your computer? Are you able to show us?
Yeah, just give me a second here because.
And again, if you're listening to us via the audio only on the podcast, you might want to make a quick note of the timestamp so you can jump on over to YouTube and have a look at what Timothy is about to show us.
Right, so this is right here. I'll just do that. It's actually we go on the full screen. I'll flip this across to you now. So this is the one that Tom made, which is kind of like a chromey sort of thing, with the purple coming through the legacy. But we ended up using, I don't know if I actually, if I ended up bringing this one here, but we got another one We did. This was actually, it's funny because Tom. First of all, I got to say Tom's a great guy. Like I love Tom. Like he's a guy. He's one of the few people that I met on a project that I've maintained a friendship for over a decade.
Yeah, well.
Living in a different country. He's just that type of dude, and so I got a lot of time for him, and he's just really talented at what he did. So this is just here as a little. Let me flip this across to you now. So that was his sketch that he did. It was a bit too futuristic for where I was going, but it was that was his starting idea. Which was some sort of sketching stuff like that. What we ended up doing was we did a photo shoot, and this was the posters that I took out to the studio to try and give an idea of what I was trying to sort of encapsulate. And there, and that logo down the bottom is the actual logo that I went with. That's the final logo that I went with, which was a little bit different to the Chromie one.
I do like that.
So that's the Kid and Heloise poster. Now, like I was saying to you guys before we started doing it, the guy who plays the Phantom there, he's an Australian actor who's over in Hollywood with me, and he's now producing the new Zac Efron film down in South Australia, which is happening at the moment. So it's funny how actors turn into producers, and just after a decade to sort of see where people are and sort of moved on. But so that's there are a couple of photos. So that was done in Tom's work, those photos, and I think they look good to me. So I was quite happy with those posters.
Yeah, for sure. Like twin posters to go with the twin Phantoms would have been a great idea. And of course, as collectors, we would have wanted one of each. And gee, if only they had been made 10 years ago and we're hanging on the wall behind me now. So that would have been cool.
We also had some concept art. I think you guys get a bit of a buzz out of this. That's the skull cave that we're looking at doing. And the characters at the front, obviously, the Bandit Tribe, but it was more about the just to sort of give scale to the pictures.
That's beautiful.
So that was kind of I was pretty excited when that came across my desk. I was like, yeah, this is very vibey. And we also did
any chance we could get a version of that people could download as a desktop or something like that? Because that'd be awesome desktop.
I reckon I could sort that out for you guys. There's also an interior one here too, if you want to stand by. This is again, this is just a scale that put the Phantom in as an idea to sort of show scale of the picture. But so that's kind of cool. That's like an interior one. It's not much of a design. It's just to sort of give the mood. It's kind of more like a mood board sort of feel.
And I guess for people who are just listening at the moment, just by way of brief description, because you've absolutely got to go and have a look at these yourself, but they are both of those landscape scenes, one which is the deep woods featuring the Skull Cave, and the other could be Whispering Woods perhaps, but both very, very moody, dark colours, but really establishing that sense of I guess mystery and enigma around the Phantom, but also in that jungle environment.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, one of the things I wanted to sort of bring the vibe of when we see the Skull Cave for the first time, they light this torch and it just goes up and lights up the entire place. You follow it around, and it's just about trying to create moments that wowed me as a fan, as somebody who's there. And I think, if I was getting excited about it, then my hope was that other people were getting excited too. There's a lot of action in the film. I didn't want to sort of slow it down too much. So I mean, look, it just would have been a super fun shoot. And, like I said, it's, you can only dream.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've been doing ever since. And the script has definitely reignited that dream.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad you guys dug it, because it's nice to, especially because nobody's really read it outside of the studio system. So Tom, it's been pretty much kept on the download because but I mean, I own the script, so it's my
yeah.
thing. When when you guys reached out and said, "Do you want to talk about it?" I thought, "Well, I'd love to, but you guys got to know what I've done in order to understand. Like, we can't have the conversation if you don't know what it's about." So it was actually quite nerve-wracking handing it to you guys because
I can imagine, yeah.
Well, because you guys are the real deal. You know, you're the people that I was going to be making the movie for. And it's all nice and well to sort of, to sit in your own little bubble and go, yeah, I've done a really good job. This is what I want to see. But I was like, when I went, well, I'm going to send it to you. But, it's just been sitting there for a decade, just, metaphorically collecting dust. So it's like we may as well get out there to people who would appreciate it and actually get some sort of enjoyment out of it. So I'm glad you guys got a chance to read it.
I got a real buzz out of it. It was, I was at work and I'd forgotten to take something to work that I'd left at home. Thought, well, I can't do that now. There's a script sitting here. I may as well read this. Thought, oh my goodness, this is great. And I was just, watching the movie in my head as I'm reading it. You could really see how this movie was going to pan out, or going to be. You're very descriptive. Like, not that I've read that many scripts, but you could watch the movie as you're reading the script.
That actually is a good segue to a question I was going to ask about. I guess as you're reading the script and visualizing it, it really what I started to do was cast characters and cast actors. So you've mentioned meeting with Liam Hemsworth. I think at the time the rumor was going around that Sam Worthington might be involved. You might be able to confirm that or not.
Sam was never involved. So John Swartz, who's played Kit in that picture, is actually Sam's best friend. So that's I worked with Sam on a movie just prior. In fact, and John was in that movie as well. So we all kind of went to LA.
I think that's probably where it came from.
Well, we all went to LA at the same time. So where they got the call to be an Avatar at the same time that I was flying into LA. So we all just arrived in Hollywood at the same time. And so he was prepping with James Cameron to do his thing. And so Wervo and I were hanging out quite a bit because and John Swartz as well. So we're all sort of just hanging out. Like I had a place where we had a nice pool and all that sort of stuff, and so it was just everybody was just doing. It was very Hollywood. It was just everybody was hanging out and doing the thing, and I think that's where it came from. It's just like because we were seen together a lot, people just assumed if I'm doing this movie, then he was doing it as well. And we'd just done a movie together, but it wasn't the case. And we tried to tell people that it wasn't happening, but the thing is, Wervo would have been great in that, but it was never raised once. That was just a rumor that kind of happened. So yeah.
So did you, if you were going to make it today, let's say it gets bankrolled on the back of this podcast, and Billy Zane decides yes he's going to be involved as well, and he wants to be the 21st Phantom for that first 10-15 minutes, but then you've got to cast a Kit and a Heloise. Have you got anyone in mind who, or an idea of a sort of person who you would see in those roles from people who are in the industry today, or even the relatively unknowns as well?
Yeah, I mean it was that question was really hard at the time when it was for real and we were doing it. So I was struggling with that as well because the Phantom Kit has to have a physical presence that is quite large. It needs to be intimidating without being The Rock. But The Rock sort of size is what you need. Yeah. And there's not that many people who are like.
And the Rock would certainly be too old now to fit the Kid character as appears in this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea was about trying to modernise it and bring it forward. I don't know who I'd cast if I was to do it in today's day. I know at the time we were throwing around names. We still hadn't locked down the cast at that stage. So, like I said, I know Bruce had met with Liam on more than one occasion in regards to it. And when they floated the idea with me, I wasn't adverse to that. I thought, and the thing was, Chris Hemsworth wasn't a star at that stage.
Yeah.
So Liam was more of a sort of person who was doing stuff at the time. So, look, I leave the casting to them. That's like the last thing I do. I don't tend to write characters with actors in mind, except for one. There's one character that was written in the voice in this film, Wachowski. Did you guys get the voice? Do you know who I wrote that based on? The Wachowski is he's one of the Marines.
Oh, I don't know who he's based on, but
It's funny because I can't not hear the voice of the actor when I read it and when I was writing it. That was, to me, that was Bill Paxton, and that was the classic Bill Paxton Aliens. Hey Sarge, hey, how you doing? You know, that sort of wacky sort of marine sort of vibe, and it's hard because every time I open up that script and I read it, all I hear is Bill Paxton talking out there. And obviously, he's no longer with us, but it was definitely with his voice. And that's the only person out of the entire movie that I wrote with any particular actor's voice in my head.
And sometimes that can be really helpful when you're creating a character as well, as if you've already got an archetype in your mind, whether it's Bill Paxton or whoever character that he played at some point that set that in for you or whatever. But I'll throw a left field one in, and it would require him to take up acting. I don't know if you're an Aussie Rules fan at all, but Alex Rance might be a former Richmond footballer.
I'll tell you a little story. Acting is a craft.
Yeah. So you reckon
a craft.
Alex Rance has got it down packed. He was a very good actor on the football field.
Nice. Yeah. Look, I don't know. I haven't seen his work, but if he's got the chops, then he's in. That's fine.
He'd be the right size. He's probably around the right age profile.
Perfect.
Yeah. What about you guys, Jermaine and Steve? Did you think of anybody as you were reading that you thought, wow, this is someone who could step behind the mask?
Probably. I like the Liam Hemsworth. If I was reading it now and if he wasn't doing Thor, he would have been.
That's Chris is doing Thor.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, but like that's how they're very similar, and like you kind of see it, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I really liked him in what was he did in that Netflix movie just recently, the one that was in India.
Still Chris Hemsworth.
That's still Chris, mate.
Yeah, no, I know that, but what I'm saying is
Extraction.
Yeah, but like that. Like that type of, I know it's the other brother, and I know he's from Thor and stuff like that. But when with the Marine start of it, that's who I kind of got the picture of at that
start. So it's that sort of vibe that we're looking at.
Yeah, and so that, but no, not really anyone else. I will admit, I was just really, when I was reading, I was just focusing on the script. I wasn't playing the casting role or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think I just kind of pictured the kid from the comics just personified, just, more human, like he had the blonde hair and the chiseled looks and blue eyes.
In some ways, someone stepping into a Phantom role would almost need to be an unknown, in a sense, like Liam would have been at the time, really.
Yeah.
And even Sam Worthington, I know that's complete rumour and you debunk that, but that was part of what people were talking about at the time as well. Someone who's about to go on their journey of becoming a megastar, and the Phantom could be their way into the film industry in a sense.
Sam's not big enough. Like, he's not tall enough. He's 6 foot, but he's not 6'6". You know what I mean? Those extra inches make him, especially that presence.
Yeah. For sure.
You'd have to cast everybody a lot smaller if you're going to go down that path.
How small would the Bandar have to be?
Yeah, right.
Well, there was a Lee Phillips story where there was a short Phantom. Wasn't he Phantom number 4? Oh, I can't remember which number it was.
I think it was.
It's the fourth son.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh, dear. So is this, so you've said, but you'd be keen to jump back into the world. I know you've got a lot of other projects going on at the moment, Tim, but is it, if someone come forward tomorrow, and how ready would you be to go?
Well, I mean, look, it's a hard world. Like, at the moment, it's a kind of a difficult sort of scenario because of the way the world is now. The reality is that it's a hard sell. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, it's a hard sell. As much as I love the script, it is a hard sell to tell to a studio that you have a white man coming in to save Africans, in their country. just in today's society, it's just a hard sell.
Yeah.
In saying that, I think we've done it really well. I think we actually circumvent all of that, and I think it actually is its own thing, and I don't think it is offensive. But just for that initial backing from a studio, I think it's a delicate thing, especially because Black Panther has done so well.
Yeah.
You know, African actors and African crew, and it was an amazing film. You know, and it broke so many barriers and so many sort of glass windows and things like that. So the fact that that's come out and being so successful, like, how do you pitch the idea of going back the other way to a studio? Like, in all sincerity, because if I could figure that out, I'd be on it straight away. But I just don't know how to do that.
It's probably not a question I thought I'd ask it when we started this, but it's something I've thought about at different times. What if, obviously the first Phantom, Christopher Standish, when he gets washed ashore, yes, he's a white European, but that's 21 generations ago, and there's been a lot of Phantoms, and they've had wives from a lot of places. Today's Phantom could be any colour, really. A brown.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't want to get too heavy into it, because I don't. It's not a thing to get too heavy into. I'm just saying, I think it's a hard sell to pitch. You know, but if you can figure that out, if you can get somebody to go, no, I can see that. I mean, look, was it Anne Hathaway last week who had to apologise because she was in a Witches movie because she had a limb, and she, you know what I mean? Like, it's just exactly right. You know, so you kind of, it's just a really delicate sort of, you know, landmines that you got to sort of look out for.
Would you have the Phantom not in the jungle at the start?
For me, I'd do it. You've read the script. I'd do it exactly the way the film is. Like, if I could get to make that movie, I'd be very happy. You know, I think we do a good job of setting up everything from the very first Phantom. You know, from Christopher Sanders coming, you know, getting washed ashore, all the way through to modern day, because, you know, we do it in such a way with flashbacks and as Kit learns. So I don't feel like there's any underlying tone or racism within the film at all.
No, there's not.
So with that in mind, I think that's its saving grace. I don't feel like it's dated. I don't feel like it's a movie that can't be made. You just need a studio who's willing to back it. And that's where I see the disconnect, because I think most studios are just so scared of offending people. And, you know, you can't not offend people. This podcast is going to offend people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just people get offended.
You know that.
Don't you worry about that. That will happen. If there's one thing for sure in the Phantom community, no one agrees. We had a bit of fun with that just this past weekend.
I guess unrelated to those questions about where we are with society now and all the rest of it, but you know, putting that to one side, with the benefit of 10 years hindsight and having just picked it up again this week or whatever to refresh your memory about what it was, do you think there's anything you'd do differently with the script or broader? Is there?
I'd tidy up some of the dialogue and I'd tidy up some of the scenes. But generally speaking, for me, I think it's great. Like, and this is not just coming from a point of like, wonderful. I'm just saying, as a filmmaker, if I read that script, I'd be like, yes,
I can do something with this. Yeah, for sure.
Man.
And look, that speaks volumes in itself, because I think just about anyone who's ever written anything, the moment they've submitted it or look back on it later, go, oh gosh, I could have done that so much better. So just the fact that even 10 years later, there's only that tidying up that you'd do.
Yeah, I like, you know, I worked really hard on the screenplay. Like, I worked on it for about 2.5 to 3 years, and it was a film where, and I mean, I worked on it really like 20 hours a day. I wrote the first draft in 4 days, and I absolutely just smashed it out. And I locked myself in. I was bouncing back and forth from LA and Sydney. And I had booked a ticket to fly back to LA on the Friday. And the guys, Bruce and Howard Symington, who was the other executive producer, said, well, we want the draft of the screenplay done before you leave. And I'd already paid for my flight. So I went, okay, I've got 4 days to write this movie. and I bought myself a massive bottle of whiskey, and I locked myself in the room, and I just drank this thing and just wrote, and I just kept writing and kept writing and kept writing, and I went, and pretty much what you see on the script is pretty much the bones of what you read now is what I wrote in that 4 days. So,
Wow.
So
It must have been a good bottle.
It was a great bottle. But the thing was, I had done a lot of research up until that point, and I already plotted all of the parts. You see, how I wrote this film was, what I tend to do is I tend to see a movie trailer, and then from the movie trailer, I go, this happens, and this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and then I realised, well, like in the trailer, there's this one bit that right at the end of the trailer where the Phantom's swinging across lava, and half his mask is ripped off, and his eyes are wide, and it's this lava underneath him, and he's in a volcano. I don't know how the hell this happens, but at some stage in this movie, the Phantom needs to get inside a volcano, an active volcano, and be like swinging across something. So I just knew that had to happen at some stage, and it's a pretty climatic thing, so it probably had to happen near the end. So at some stage, he has to be in a volcano. And so that's how I sort of got those set pieces of action through really coming together with a really tight trailer of how I saw the movie. And then from there, I was able to sort of expand out. But that was my writing process for this particular film. It wasn't for every film that I do, but it was definitely for this one. So.
Wow.
And I know you didn't control a lot of this, but behind the scenes, in a production sense, is there anything that you look back and go, well, I could have controlled that, or it really is just as random as a Libyan dictator getting overthrown?
No, I think being an independent, because really we were an independent film. Like we went to the, I flew over to New York and I pitched this idea. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I didn't really sort of finish the story. We went out to the $100 steak, the Palms Hotel, and Rocky said to me, he said, look, we wanted, he explained that he wanted to do the Predator thing, or he wanted to do the Batman thing, and what was my take? Because there's 3 different companies that were looking at buying it. They were vying for the option, and I just said to him, I said, look, can you do me a favor? Can I actually order like the lunch first, because I think this is going to be the shortest pitch in the world, and I really want to pay $100 steak, because I don't think I'm ever going to be tasting $100 steak again. So like, I'd really like to order some food. And they all laughed, and I said, no, seriously, it's going to be a short pitch. And when I told them that the way I wanted to modernize the Phantom was killing him off in the first 10 minutes, I thought, and this is where it ends. And they were like, go on. For me, that was I think, sorry, I've lost sort of track of the question, but I just wanted to sort of finish that story. What was the question? Sorry. It's late here in Sydney.
No, that's all right. Yeah. Just if there's anything differently you could have done, I suppose.
Could have done different. Yeah. So I don't think so. I think I probably would have put my foot down a bit harder on being the director. My writer's deal, like the deal that I had behind the scenes, was a multi-million-dollar deal if this movie went into production, which for a writer is kind of unheard of. So I think on a producing level and on a writing level, I did really well. Like, I secured some really decent rights, but what I didn't do was secure that directing right, and that was probably but I was fighting for it, and it looked like I was going to get there. But it looked like I might have had to co-direct with Brett, and which would have been interesting because, like I said, Brett said he was just going to stand behind me and make sure that I'm doing the right stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, you don't need a backseat driver for anything. And I love Brett Lennon. I think he's great, but it's just, I just didn't need him he could be a producer as far as I was concerned and do the same thing. He didn't have to be a director. So
yeah. Now, you might need to explain this whole process a little bit with me, but do you still own all the company or whatever? Do you still own the rights to the Phantom movie, or is that now expired?
Yeah, that's expired. I don't know who has the rights to it at the moment, but I definitely don't. But I have the rights to my screenplay. So if a Phantom movie was going to be made outside of me, they'd either have to purchase the screenplay or they would have to write their own.
Yeah.
So this really is the movie that almost got made.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to share it with you, because it's, you guys would, I was hoping you guys would appreciate it. It looks like you have, so that's good. But, like I said, I put a lot of work into the research because I really felt an obligation to make a movie that was good for the fans. And like I said, I felt a bit ripped off on the original Phantom movie because I felt like it was just a bit too cheesy. And I think I just felt like I deserved a better movie. And it's, and some people love the cheesiness of the original. I mean, and that's fine. Like I'm not anti, definitely not anti Christy Swanson and all that sort of. Like I'm not anti any of that. But I wanted something a bit grittier, and I wanted something like, I mean, when you look at the Phantom, you don't see cheese. Like when you look at that, like you held up the latest issue of Phantom, and my first reaction was, oh, do you know what I mean? Like at the beginning, this was great.
It's a good issue. Go out and
I'm going to. Like, I haven't seen it, and you held it up. I was like, damn, dude, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to see, and I didn't get that in the last movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's got the rights at the moment. I did approach them a couple of years ago, probably about 2016, to see if they were still available. And Rocky was sort of umming and ahhing about it. There's a lot of people that want the rights, especially because comic books are now a commodity that people think they can make money from, which is good. I mean, you want that. But you now, instead of fighting one or two people, you're fighting 3,000 or 4,000 people who are vying for the options. I think for me personally, like I said, I've got a couple of films coming out. If I can get myself into a position where they take my work seriously, then that's probably my best ammunition moving forward. I mean, the movie that we just released on Halloween, the thing that people don't understand about that movie was that I shot that film, which got a release through Vertical in the US and in the UK and pretty much all over the world, except for here in Australia. We haven't released it here yet. But I shot that entire movie myself with no crew and just the actors. And and it people are like going, oh man, this movie is so low budget. I'm like, yeah, dude, this movie is super low budget. Whatever budget you think a movie is, divided by 1,000. That's what this movie is. It was
what's his name? It's like the fellow who did Desperado and
Robert Rodriguez.
That's him. Yeah.
Mate, seriously, if you had a chance to check out the trailer or whatever, check it out. It's funny because it got kind of slammed on IMDb, and it's like, I don't know, 3.4 out of 10, but it's not a 3.4 out of 10 movie. And if you go over to things like the movie database, where we're not getting kind of trolled, you'll see it's up at 70%. And so it's just one of those sort of things that. This is an industry, especially here in Australia, that people will tend to want to try and take people down and do what have you. Yeah. What I'm trying to say by all of this is that it's actually a movie I'm really proud of, and it's a movie which I've shot. I shot myself. I'm not a cinematographer, but I shot it, and we had a couple of people in post to help us. But generally speaking, it's a movie that was released in 4K, on Blu-ray, in 5.1 Dolby Digital. Like, it's got all the technical specs that you'd expect in a movie, and it was released and sold around the world. That's a nice little foot in the door. Once we get Shadow Wars out, it's a comic book movie which we can show the sort of strength of where that's at. I've got this other drama which I'm looking at shooting next year. So my hope is that there will be enough runs on the board at that point to be able to sit down with the studio and say, look, the script is still here, and and
we still want to watch it.
And it's still relevant. I mean, like I said, it's probably more relevant today than it was 10 years ago. So all the fake voting fraud and all the stuff that goes on in the movie. So so I'm definitely not adverse. I could go tomorrow on it. I mean, the hardest thing for making a movie is actually getting the script into a place that's right. I reckon give me 2 weeks with that script and what I've learned over the last 10 years, and I could certainly knock out another draft and be very happy with it. So I think the bones are very much there.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So did you ever deal with King Features or the Hearst company?
Yep. So I dealt with Rocky over at King Features.
Okay.
So that was Rocky Shepherd.
Yeah.
I think you said, and that was your contact at KFS.
Yeah, so Rocky Shepherd took me out to the Palms and gave me that $100 steak.
Right.
So, was it a good steak?
You know what? This is so funny. I was so nervous that I don't recall anything. Like I was like, because once I pitched the idea, like I said, I was so certain they were just going to laugh me out of the room because, like, I want to make a movie and kill your main character in the first 10 minutes. Like,
so to finish that story, they didn't laugh you out of the room. What was their response to the pitch then? Obviously, reasonably enthusiastic.
They looked around the room to each other. They kind of all smiled and they said, "Enjoy your steak."
That's it.
Enjoy your steak. He goes, the movie's yours.
Wow.
And I knew right then and there. So, and I did enjoy that steak.
You must have been on cloud 9 walking away from the lunch.
I was, I didn't realize that, when you're pitching to a comic studio and stuff like that, especially now, I'm sure it'd be a lot more difficult because, like I said, you get 3,000 people pitching a day.
Yeah.
But back then, what they saw was just a really enthusiastic dude who had a story that they liked the idea of. At that stage, I hadn't written the story. I just had the treatment and the pitch. And once they said, "Yeah, let's do it," they gave me this thing here.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that is a 6-figure statue. I say 6-figure because it cost us a 6-figure sum to get the license. And this is what I got for it. So it's the most expensive Phantom statue. I mean, I'm sure you can buy it for like $150 somewhere, but it cost me over $100,000. So
I'm sure Jen will be able to tell us the maker, and that's a bit more than a $150 statue.
Yeah.
It's more in the
it's the for those who are on audio, it's the Tiki design statue. It came in blue as well. You're looking at about $800 to $1,000 now.
there you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Not quite the 100,000, but
That would cost more than 100,000. I'm telling you right now. So.
yeah. But no, it was sculpted by Ruben Procopio, who was a sculptor for a lot of Disney stuff as well.
It's an amazing statue. And the thing that's really funny is that it actually, to this day, still sits at my desk looking at it. Like it's not something which I put away. It's like it's very much part of my working space.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm super proud of it. And like I said, I'm still hopeful. But once you have a movie that's basically rolling into pre, so it's moved out of development, moving into pre, and then stops, and then it's 10 years later, you kind of just put it to a side. And like, it was bizarre that you guys got in contact with me because, because like I said, I've kept in contact with Tom for the whole time through it. And it was funny because at the time, Tom was working on a new Ghostbusters logo, the Ghostbusters 3, because they were pitching that idea around back in the day as well. So it was a weird sort of, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. In fact, my number plate is Ecto 1. So he was working on that at the time, and we're doing Phantom, and it was just a time where I don't know, it just felt like things were just happening. It was all getting really close, and I felt like we were going to make a really good movie. And I was at that stage where I was like, I'm really looking forward to the fans checking this out because I think they're going to really dig it. Yeah. And then for it suddenly to just go boom to nothing, you just get to a point where you're like, well, what else can you do? You just
the definition of a sliding doors moment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And here we are. So,
well, in the last few minutes, I've just thought of an actor. Yeah, we said before, reasonably unknown and a tall presence, who is actually an actor. He's done a few things, but there's a fella called, and he knows the character really, really well. His name is Duncan Munro. And well, maybe he's a little bit too old to play the Phantom now. He's got a few years in us, mate. But he could probably play at least one of those Marines. I reckon he'd be.
Oh, 100%. He would love that. And Duncan,
and he would. Yeah.
We do know him personally, but he's also a registered actor. And
yes, he's actually. That was actually true. That was.
To give you some picture, he actually won an international Jack Reacher lookalike competition.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Jack Reacher the novel or Jack Reacher Tom Cruise?
Fans were filthy when Tom Cruise was cast, and lots of them were signing petitions to have Duncan, this relatively, absolute unknown, to come from the clouds and play the character. So, and he would have loved it.
I got no problems working with people who are unknown, but it's just bad for the studios. They want to be able to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And
it's all business, man. So it's that thing of a lot of the creative control is an arm wrestle on a daily basis. So when you're dealing with studios and you're dealing with people putting in that amount of money, it is a fight. Like, you go into battle every day. And I can't explain it any more than that. Like, one of the greatest things about being an independent filmmaker is not having to deal with that. If I decide I want to do something in a particular way, I can just do that. And you actually have that control on the smaller budget things. But then what you don't have is the ability to market them and get them out to the wider audience. So, the benefits of working through a studio is that you have what they call P&A, the print and advertising, and the marketing team behind you to be able to push your films to a larger audience versus the ability to just make what you want. So it's kind of, you've got that balance of what you need to do to get it right. For the Phantom, you need a studio behind it because you need the marketing. And there's a section in there which I really fought to get out, but to not have in the film. But Bruce Sherlock really wanted it in, and that's that. There's like a Christian vibe to it, with like some Christian, where Heloise is working for a Christian aid group, and there's all this sort of stuff. And I just said it doesn't actually need to be there. And it's not that I'm anti-Christian. I'm just saying it doesn't need to be there. We can tell this story without bringing in politics or religion.
Yeah.
But he was really adamant that that's what he wanted, and so it ended up being in the script. So that's something which I would take out, not because I'm anti-Christian at all, but I just don't think it needs to be in the concept of the film.
And while you're, as you say, not anti-Christian, there are people who are, and you don't need to eliminate any section of your audience.
It has no relevance to the story.
Yeah.
It doesn't add to the story.
Reading the script, I didn't read it as that type of organisation at all. I just read it as a humanitarian aid organisation.
I think there's a line in there. Maybe I did take it out. Who knows? But there's a line in there that was put that he requested to be put in there. And I think so. Maybe it did. Maybe it was an earlier draft. Maybe I did take it out. But there's a line. But they're the sort of battles that you do. Like, they're weird battles. Some of them are big battles, and some of them are these weird sort of like, can you put in this date? Because if we make it this date, that's actually representative of when my parents got married, and I think that'd be a nice little gesture. And you go, it's nice, but that has nothing to do with the story. Like, do we have to suddenly say that the Phantom was born in 1976?
Yeah,
because that's the day that your parents got married.
Yeah,
like that's So you kind of do. You just have to have. It's just little battles all the time. And for me, all I wanted to do was just tell the story. But that's life. You sort of just have to deal with everything as they go through. So.
Did you have any of those type of battles with KFS? Now, the reason we ask is because KFS are known to be quite influential in the creative process with requests and what can and can't be included. Did you? Was there any changes?
Yeah, so it was a weird thing. I wrote a first draft for them, which wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't very good, and it was okay, but it was like, I didn't like it. It definitely wasn't this movie. And there's like, they had like ninjas flying around. It was like all this like weird stuff, right? And it was a treatment, and they went, yeah, we really like this. And then I was like, actually, I don't. I think I want to go with this. And I pitched that, and it was a massive arm wrestle. So the script that you read, they didn't like.
Oh
wow.
So, and they felt like the Phantom was too hardcore. They felt like he was, there was too much sort of anger in Kit. And I'm like, dude, his dad got murdered pretty much in front of him. Like, the guy's going to have some trauma issues. So, and I wanted to have that because, like I said, the idea was about modernizing the Phantom and bringing him into today's day. And the only way he can do that is if we explain without exposition who the Phantom is. So Kid needs to learn who his forefathers are and learn his story, and then he needs to grow as a character, or we're going to have no emotional connection to him. And that was what was important to me. I wanted people to be emotionally connected to the characters. And like you said, there's a lot of actual characters. Like I did a lot of research, and I tried to bring the comic to life in a modern way that was not disrespectful to fans. And that took time, and it took a lot longer than the 4 days in the first draft, I'll tell you that. You know, and it did take time, and it took research. You know, like I said, I was a Phantom fan in the sense that I really liked Defenders of the Earth, and I liked the comics, and but I wasn't hardcore. And if I was going to make a movie about it, I needed to become hardcore. I needed to do the research.
Yeah.
And I still don't think I'm hardcore. But what I did was I did 3 years of hardcore research, and I tried to make a film that was that the fans would actually appreciate.
So what did that research look like, Tim? Like, obviously, the internet, Phantom Wiki, and that sort of thing.
Less the internet. There was an almanac that came out just when I was doing it, and it was basically every episode of every Phantom broken down with every character that ever appeared in every single Phantom comic. And it was this almanac that literally came out at the time that I was writing, and I bought it. And it was just a Bible. It was just a Bible of Phantom stuff. And I just read it page to page like 10 times and just got my head around it. I went, well, that's a character I can use, and that's a character I can use. And that's when I started seeing the similarities to, in particular, Star Wars. You know,
right.
seeing the twins, seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi as Old Man Maz. You know, seeing these archetype characters that are so successful in so many other, you know, Greek mythology and all the bits and pieces. It's all there. And the question then became, well, what story do you tell? Do you tell the story of the Pirates of the Caribbean swashbuckling years, or do you tell the story of the 1920s Phantom in his strongman suit doing his thing, or do you tell a modern version of, you know, or do what Tom was doing, which was telling the future version, you know? And so for me, I thought, well, if I told a version now with flashbacks done appropriately, you know, you can tell all the backstory. You can have, there is that Pirates of the Caribbean sort of swashbuckling adventure. There's a whole section. There's 20 minutes dedicated to the Phantom becoming the Phantom, you know, as Moz is telling the story of his forefathers and stuff like that. So for me, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, I was really excited because I got to do all of it. Yeah. You know, the only thing I didn't get to do was the future stuff. But I was able to do the whole history of the Phantom in 2.5 hours, you know, so.
Yeah.
One thing I've really liked as I was reading the script, like we've already said throughout the podcast, how you want to make it modern, make it gritty, and it's definitely a movie for today. When we first get introduced to Kit, you know, after 21 has been killed, and then we see Kit later on in life, and he's a Marine, and we see that there's killing in the movie, and one of the things that might turn fans off, and it kind of got me thinking, oh, what now? What am I reading here? And we see Kit, you know, being a soldier and doing what soldiers do, but then once Kit becomes the Phantom, there was, you know, I don't think there's a spoiler there. That no longer happens. Like, was that something that happened by accident, or you made sure that
was on purpose?
Yeah.
And that bit at the end, which you're talking about, where the idea was that he has all the marine armor that he has, and the further he goes through it, the more his armor fails him.
Oh, I love that.
And so the more his armor fails him, the more he becomes the Phantom, to the point where he is literally standing in his underwear with the purple dye on him, which is the stuff which we set up in the film. And it's standing there, and he is the Phantom. So, and it's about stripping away everything that was holding him back from being that character, and about him embracing who he is. But like I said, the thing that I love about it is that is he the Phantom? Because you've got another person who's on the other side who's doing it naturally. She's always been doing it. She's been helping people. She's been looking after people. She's been fighting the good fight when nobody else has been fighting the good fight. And that, to me, on a psychological level, was what I really enjoyed, because it's this moment of, well, actually, who, and the reality is they both are. And there can only be one, to quote the Highlander. So it's, for me, it gives me goosebumps, because I sit there and I go, that's what's really cool to me, because both of them have the right to be 22. And it's just like, and who is going to be that, and so I talked about seeing trailers. Well, for Retribution, the opening of the trailer was Moz stepping over to Heloise and saying, "I think I made a mistake." And that's where I kind of start, because it was like, he's, in the end of the day, he kind of makes the choice on who it should be. And I just think just having that psychological aspect to the film, where the characters hold weight, and it's really about Kit growing up and becoming that, whereas which he's doing. And that's part of him not killing people. And that's part of him losing his armor. But I think if we were able to do that, and we were able to go further, I would have been able to explore that idea. And that's the point. The Phantom doesn't kill people. And so when Kit decides to go, well, I'm going to hunt these people down, it's like, that is the wrong idea. That is the wrong idea. That is not what that's not what your dad stood for. That is not what your grandfather stood for. So again, it's about creating that drama. And
the Phantom's not John Wick, is he?
No, but he is. That's the thing. Like, he's got all the skills of John Wick.
Yeah.
And what happens in that film, without going into too much, spoiler alert stuff as well, but it is his growth journey through that.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is, will it piss off some fans? Well, if they stick with me, they won't. we'll get there. But I just think if things happen, I mean, everybody knows in life, if things happen too fast, you don't go on the journey, then it's not worth telling the story. And what I wanted to do is give everyone the Phantom that they deserve. That was the idea behind it. So he was a soldier, and he takes up the mantle, and then he gets to be president.
And a lot of the superhero movies that we've seen, which we've made mention before, they've all gone through very similar journeys as well, where they had the self-doubt, and Spider-Man's a classic example of where it's just a brooding emo teenager, but that is very prevalent in today's movies as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene in Superman where Superman, cracks General Zod's neck, and I didn't like that, because that's just, to me, is something that Superman would not do. And so in seeing that, I could understand why people would say, well, the Phantom wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But to me, it was that once he became the Phantom, he stopped doing that sort of stuff. He stopped. And I think people are allowed to be lost on their way, and I think it makes for interesting stories. If everybody was just good and everything was fine, then they're pretty boring stories.
It makes them more relevant.
The movie would be over in 5 minutes.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a scroll up the screen, and then the end.
Go read the book.
But when superhero, and I think that's why a lot of these superheroes are relevant, is because they do struggle like a normal human being. They are human, and the Phantom, he is a human being. He does have weaknesses. He does have failings. He's very good at his job, but he is a human being. He's not, hasn't been zapped by gamma rays or an alien or something like that. He is a human being.
Yeah,
he drinks milk.
He drinks milk. Now, with the people that you were dealing with, now I'm pretty curious about the whole King Features thing and stuff like that. We've been trying to get King Features on the podcast to kind of learn a little bit more from up there.
For about 105 episodes, we've been trying to
seeing you've actually dealt with them and all that. Are they like like you mentioned, what was the guy's name? Was it Robbie?
Rocky.
So, these people that you're dealing with, are they younger people? Are they older people that are like, what was...
Yeah, I mean, Rocky's a really switched on guy. He's from New York. He's got that New York sort of. I mean, he's a New York CEO. So
yeah. Did they get the Phantom? Like, did they know who the Phantom was, or
he knows his products. Yeah. I don't think. I think Rocky's very sharp. I don't have any issues with Rocky. I think he knows his business, and he knows Hearst, and he knows what he's doing. If you can't get him, it's because he's probably really busy. he's a busy guy, but they are very hands-on. They don't do things.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they left me alone to write the script. That wasn't a script. Like I said, they actually, I think if we were to make this film today, they might fight me on a couple of things on it, or even just reject the script completely now. So I don't know where they are with their company, but which is a weird thing to say, because that's the movie we were going to make, but you never know. I still stand by the script. I think that it's one of the best things I've written, and I love it. So, and reading it again, a couple of days ago, I was just like, man, this movie's so cool. Like, I'm really so bummed I didn't get a chance to see this on the big screen. So, look, I think the guys at King's Features are full on into it, and I don't think they're, I think they're pretty savvy when it comes to this sort of stuff. So,
yeah, no, I was just curious on like what their, kind of like what their knowledge or what they were about the Phantom. Was it just a something that's just part of their job, or were they like truly invested in the character?
I think that's always the fear, isn't it? That the execs in the ivory towers who don't really feel the passion like we do is.
Look, I can't talk to you about whether they feel the passion or not. I know he runs a business.
Yeah.
I think if you can make business sense to him, I mean, the big thing I said to them is, like I said, look, the Phantom isn't Predator and he isn't Batman. So if you go down that path, if that's a path you choose, I think it's the wrong path. Like, I just think it's the wrong path. Like,
just alienates the audience.
Yeah, I just think I think we could do something with the character as is. I don't think we need to change him into something else. So I don't know, man. It's a tough call. It's been over a decade since I've had any joy out of Hearst, but King Features. But it's I mean, they're still there. They still own the rights, and if I had the opportunity to make this film, I would. But I would want to do what I was saying. I would like to do Phantom 1, Phantom 2, Handbrake. I understand Flash could be hard, but I at least want to do those. If I could do those three, I reckon, like I said, if we can get the Flash people on the same page, I'm happy to write it. I'm happy to just say, can you write it, but make sure it fits into this little bracket sort of thing.
Arc, yeah.
It's, for me, it's not an ego thing. It's not I want to be in charge of everything or whatever. I feel like I have a very solid plan. And as you can see from the first script that you've read, it is a solid film. It's not wishy-washy, and it's not all over the place. It's definitely not like the 45 pages that I read, which I mean, it wasn't even. I can't even explain it. I mean, I wish I still had it. I probably could find it somewhere. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. It's
No, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know if you would.
It'll be curious having a look at the. I've got a couple of the movies, the '96 movie scripts, and it's interesting going through it and reading it. And I've got like comic book scripts and stuff. And the nerd inside of me likes the process. Getting it from the bit of paper to the artist doing the scribbles and the pencils to the finished product, and hearing the stories behind it. It's the same as what you've told us. The nerd in me, and I'm sure the hundreds of other people that are going to be listening to this as well, the nerd in all of them as well, are going to really appreciate.
It's so close to happen, man. It was so close, like right there.
In your research that you did, or back in the day now, it sounds weird saying that. Did you ever get in contact with any other Phantom writers? For example, Tony DePaul, who does the daily script?
No. I just based it on I based it on the history. You know, like I said, I was really lucky to have this almanac Bible, which was just, it basically covered every character that ever appeared in any, and what episodes they appeared in. And it was this thick. It was like, it was ridiculous. But it was my Bible. It's basically, it's so weird. I just walked into a shop. I think I was in Melbourne at the time. And I just walked into a shop and it was just like, it was just there.
Would you still have that, Tim? Because I'm curious about that book. I don't think I've ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird, man. It was like it was just sitting there in a news agency. Yeah, I could look for. I haven't seen it in a long time. It was pretty tattered and torn by the time.
Yeah,
I did it. But it was definitely my lifeline. And if you guys, as you said, there's all these characters in there. They're all true to their characters. But that's because of that almanac. That was why I was able to go, well, who is that person and where do they fit in and what can I do with that character and then how can I make sure it's the same character?
Yeah.
And so that's it was meant to be, and hence the reason why I'm surprised the movie hasn't been made yet. You know, it felt like everything was very serendipitous and everything felt like it was right. And maybe it wasn't right to be making a movie for a Libyan dictator. Maybe that was the thing.
I'm not sure that really lives up to the Phantom ethos either.
Exactly, right? So
I would have forgiven it if we got that movie.
I would have forgiven him if I got the paycheck, I'll tell you what.
We would only need the money for a little bit. Could have been his lasting legacy. I can't remember. I had a question, but I can't remember it anymore. I think it might have been the encyclopedia that Jim Shepard released.
Might have been that.
Might have been around that time. Because it's I know that, so that might be it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a godsend. It really was. It was amazing as a writer to have every character that ever existed, and to be able to pull out people and see where they could fit and make them work. So, and like I said, I literally walked into a shop, and I was, at the time I was just buying up Phantom comics wherever I can find it, because I was just trying to get as much. Because it's a big deal, right? Well, I'm an independent filmmaker who's made a couple of like low budget, crappy little films, and all of a sudden they're like, you've got a shot at writing a proper big $100 million movie. And,
sorry, can I just get we've talked about Lee Falk's character for nearly 2 hours now, and we haven't mentioned Lee Falk, and he's the writer who was created all of this. As a writer yourself, can you give us a bit of a comment about the world that Lee Falk created and the way that all of these, the universe that you've stepped into and written your own part for?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I got to say it was an absolute, it was an honour to be even in a position where I could do something like that. I felt that Lee, he created the first superhero, right? The first costume superhero. That was him, and so there was just so much pressure for me to do something that lived up to a standard of quality that this person created. Now 100 years ago, and for me it was actually just about trying to honour his world, and it was about trying to make sure. I don't know. Can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, it's all right. We're 2 hours in. If you,
we can put a beep in if we really need to.
I had a chat. It's funny because I mentioned it because I had a chat about this whole scenario with James Cameron, and as I was writing at the time, and I was chatting with James Cameron because Weather had a thing on, and I met him because he was there for Sam. He was doing his thing, and he said to me these words. He said, "Don't fuck it up," and that's how I felt. Like I felt like I had a lot of responsibility, and I think I think the thing is that Leafold's world was created for the 1920s, right? So it felt like that. It felt like, you had your strong man with his underwear on the outside, and but beyond the physicalities of the character, there's so much to it. There was, you had the ring, versus the one that was closest to his heart, which was his friends. There was thought put into it. It wasn't just random. There was a whole process that Leafold had created in about, really morality and doing right and doing good and helping people, and that was a generational thing, and it was passed down for so long. So I think his world, and I found it even in Mandrake and all that sort of stuff. I found that world that was created. It was fascinating. I think he did a really fascinating job. I mean, I don't wish to sort of sound airy-fairy about it, but I think the biggest thing for me was just the responsibility of carrying that story forward. And I was going to be doing it on a level that most writers don't get to do it on, because it was looking to be a big tentpole blockbuster.
Yeah.
And it's just the amount of responsibility I felt was so large that I realized I couldn't fuck it up. Like, I needed to do it right. And the biggest thing for me was trying to connect the audience to the characters. Because I knew if I could do that, and that's actually, emotional connection in any script is the hardest thing to do. Yeah. But I knew if I could get that, and I can get people invested in the characters, then we've got a movie. You had all the set pieces. We had the lava and the explosions and the fighting and the thing. All that's great, but if you don't care about what's going on and you don't care about the characters, and so for me, it was about that. It was about honoring the characters, yet making it modern to a point where people in today's world can understand it. That was it. And it sounds easy, but it was actually quite a hard thing to do. And I feel like I kind of got there. Like I said, I'd still do another draft on the script if I was shooting it, but I feel like it's kind of there, and I'm definitely proud of the film. Like, and if I ever had the opportunity to make it, I would obviously jump at it. But it's just one of those things that it was an absolute blessing for me. It did nothing for my career. Like, it took me out of the game for about 5 years. Yeah, so it didn't really do anything for me on that level. But what it did do is it got me into working with studios. It got me working with, large intellectual properties that weren't mine. And like I said, I didn't take that responsibility lightly. I felt a lot of pressure, and not in a bad way. When I say I felt a lot of pressure, it wasn't like I understood how important it was for me not to fuck it up, in order to make sure I do what's right by the original material, the Leafold's, what he started, and also to give the fan base something that they can be, they can rally behind, get excited about, and want to see more of. Because that's the thing. Like, I didn't want to see more of the '96 version. Like, I wanted to see more of what I was writing, which sounds possibly a bit egotistical, but that's the movie I wanted to see. That's the movie I wanted to see. I wanted to see that fandom kicking ass and having that rich culture. And I wanted it to be, I didn't want to be confined by G rating sort of storytelling, but I didn't want to go the whole R rated either. I don't want to go Deadpool. It's like, surely there's a happy medium, and I think Marvel nailed it. Marvel nailed the happy medium.
Yeah.
And
it seems like this was Marvel before Marvel.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they had Iron Man out, but we were at the same time. We were at the same sort of time. And that's the thing. People are like, oh, yeah, we've seen this film or whatever, and it's a movie that fits in today's day. But this was a movie which I literally wrote 12 years ago. Yeah. So, so that's when we did the first draft of it. So it's, it was at the right time. It could have led to bigger and better things for all the fan base out there. And, what went wrong was that, we weren't coming from inside a studio. in purchasing it. We were independent filmmakers who raised a lot of money to do it, and we're doing it ourselves. And we had a studio behind us, but that was in the back end. It wasn't where, if it was driven by a studio at the front, things might have, we definitely wouldn't have had money coming out of Olivia. So, but yeah, that was the thing. And so I obviously major disappointment in not being able to deliver the film. And like I said, now that you guys have read the script, you know what I'm talking about. There was something really special in that script, and Retribution would have been just as special, and Mandrake would have been just as special, and I just, and I felt like if I could nail those three, we'd get Flash in there as well. So,
yeah.
So, Retribution and Mandrake, how far along were you with the scripts on those?
Well, the funny thing is, I'm actually repurposing Mandrake to a film which I'm just going to make myself. So that's chipping away, but it's a bit of a bigger budget. And so I'll probably put that on the burner for about 4 or 5 years and do that down the track.
Yeah.
Retribution was just a story point, like just a blocks. I knew what happened. I knew the style of film it was. It's much more, it's basically going after the Singh Brotherhood. And it had a more of a European feel to it. So it had a much more sort of Jason Bourne sort of vibe going on for it. And that was the whole idea. It was basically taking the Phantom out of the jungle and bringing him into today's day. And so it felt more like a Mission Impossible movie.
Okay.
That sort of vibe. So good, fun characters, but just a lot of action, lots of stuff happening around the world. So
another Tom Cruise reference.
he could do the Phantom, bro.
Well, if he did, everyone would have to be smaller as well.
Very short pygmies.
Or you'd have to wear big platforms.
Dude, that guy's crazy though. Like the stunts that he does, I don't even want to talk about it. Like he's insane.
Look, we give him stick, but I love his movies.
So his new movie is actually they literally flying into space to make it.
Really?
Like literally flying into space.
That's not with that Elon Musk fellow or something, is it?
Yeah, they'll be doing that, but they're doing it's a space movie, and he's doing it in space. With Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Good on you. Best of luck to you.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions. I've really enjoyed tonight. What about you guys? Do you have any more questions?
No, I tapped out with my Tony DePaul one.
No, I'm just, I don't have any other questions for you, Tim, but just a huge thank you for your time tonight. And certainly for sharing the script with us. It's a huge privilege for us as Phantom fans to have been able to read that for you. I guess it's a good opportunity for you to plug anything that you'd like people who've listened to this to go and check out your MySpace blog if it's still going, or how can people find out what you're up to?
I don't even know. Is my MySpace blog still going?
I actually did look for it, but I couldn't find it.
I'm excited about that. I'm like, I want to see what I did back in 2006. Look, there's no real massive plugs. I've got, like I said, I've got a movie coming out later next year called Shadow Wars, which I'm really proud of. That's one we did with John Rhys Davies and Tasman Walton and Peter Phelps. Some really sort of cool Jay Lagaya. He's great. Actually, I think Jay Lagaya, if you ever get a chance to work with him in anything, he's fantastic. If you get a chance to interview him, he's fantastic. I'd stick him in any film. He's just a cool dude.
Well, if he's a Phantom fan, we'll get him on. That way we can link him in.
Because he was one of the guys in Xena as well. So he's sort of old school. He could easily be in Phantom. I'd stick him in the movie. You want a casting person? Jay Lagaya. I'll stick him in there.
There you go.
So we got that coming out. So that's Shadow Wars that's coming out next year. And then on Halloween, I guess wait until next Halloween and watch it then. It's a Halloween movie. There's no point.
With that on Halloween movie, like you said, it was released in Europe and the US. But was it released in theatres? Isn't everything shut down over in COVID, or was it on?
It was released in certain parts of America. It was released in theatres and VOD.
Video on demand. Yep.
And video on demand. And then it was released in the UK purely on streaming platforms. But it was everywhere. They did a really good job.
Oh.
Pretty much every streaming platform leading up to Halloween, my movie poster was there on the front. Every time you turn on your TV, my movie poster was there. So
that's handy.
Yeah, which was kind of cool. So we actually got a wide release, and we're pretty much on all the major platforms. So we were on like 30 different streaming services. But it was one of those where you pay to either buy it or you rent it for $3 or whatever it is. So I don't know how much money we made, but it's definitely sold. And like I said, we got mixed reviews. We got some people who just really loved it and really got what we're doing, and then other people just were like, "You are the worst filmmaker that's ever lived." Go and jump off a bridge or something, and I'm just like, so I'm not going to listen to either. I'll sit somewhere else.
At least they're talking about you. It's better than no one mentioning it.
And look, this movie was on Halloween was a movie that like I said, we shot for no money. It was literally my side project. I shot it so I can make a movie, so I can finish the other movie. You know, the whole idea was just to make another movie to sell to finish the other one. So we'll see how that if that process worked out, if we did anything. But I won't know until next year, because the way the accounting works is that you sort of find out how much money you've made every 4 or 5 months. And so I won't, it's a mystery to me. I know it's sold. I know, I can see that people have been hit. I think we had over 2 million hits on my webpage in the weeks leading up.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was quite a lot of people. And then obviously nothing after Halloween, because, you know, like I said, you can't release on Halloween on Christmas. So,
well, hopefully some of our international audiences have seen it, and for Australian listeners, perhaps about 11 months from now, it might hit our streaming services.
Absolutely. Well, the Germans called it, they've released it on Blu-ray, and they called it, in German, they called it The Night of the Horror Clowns, because it's a clown movie. I was like, man, that's a great title. I wish I actually called the movie A Night of the Horror. Fantastic. So you gotta love the Germans, man. They're all over it.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate your time. I know we've taken up almost 2.5 hours of your time, Timothy. But yeah, it's a great honour. It's a pity that we weren't able to talk to you post the movie, but who knows? Maybe we will see it. Maybe someone will listen to this, and it will kind of get the ball rolling again. But
good to go.
Yeah, it's I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed really enjoyed reading it. So again, just want to say thank you.
I got the chance to read it, because that's the thing. I mean, I made it for people to watch.
Yeah.
So, you know, 10 years later, to be sitting here chatting to you guys, at least you get what we're looking at doing, and that's so for me, that's fantastic. So I appreciate you taking the time and inviting me on and having a read.
Yeah, I remember reading the news about it 10 plus years ago, and discussing it on the old Phantom forum. Some of the oldies who are listening to this would remember that platform, and there was a lot of fans that were excited about it. What was kind of funny is after this, we stopped hearing about it. We kind of got the sci-fi Phantom pilot instead, which it kind of missed the mark a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone out there and you're listening to this and you've got some money spare, make sure you hit up Timothy Boyle. And what's your website so they can get a hold of you?
boilingpointpictures.com.
There you go. And again, that will be in the show notes as well. So from myself, I just want to say thank you, and I'll let Dan and Stephen say thank you as well.
Yeah, thanks again, Tim. Super appreciate your time and sharing your vision with us. It's been fantastic for us, and I say that with the PH.
I love it.
Yes, thanks, Tim. It's been great listening to you. Terrific listening to you tell your stories about what nearly came to be and what hopefully can come to be, and your knowledge of the Phantom. You're doing well. We think you did a great job, and we hope to see it soon.
Yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. I really do. So, and keep up the good work. Keep doing what you do.
No worries. Thank you. So if you are a new listener, you can find out about us on our website, which is chroniclechamber.com. Again, the script will be on our Phantom Preservation project. So if you want to know more about that, you can go on our website. You can email us, which is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. We're all over iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, and your favorite Android podcast apps. So if you want to listen to more of our podcasts, make sure you subscribe to us on there. We're all over social media as well, which is Chronicle Chamber, which is on Facebook. And then on Twitter, we're at Chronicle Tweets. Instagram, we're at Chronicle Chamber. And again, as we said, we are on YouTube as well. A huge shout out to all of our listeners. We love you guys. We thank you for listening to us. From myself, happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming, everybody.
Happy Phantoming, one and all.
And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die. The Phantom! The ghost who walks. The Phantom. Enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.